Hi everyone, my name is Carla Zero. I'm the creator of the short animated film Without a Soul, and today I'm going to take you through the process of making, so stay tuned and I hope you guys enjoy. The original story I came up with was quite different. Adam was a scientist and he decided to bring his dead wife back to life. Then you'd get a montage of their life together, filled with happiness. And then at the end you'd see a shot of him sitting at a dinner table with his wife's corpse. But this story seemed quite complex, and when I was working on the script I kept changing the story until it became what it is now. Alden being a dressmaker who lost the love of his life, and with the memories he had of her, he'd imagine her being there with him, and then you'd get the dancing scene together until the camera cuts back to the reality, and you'd see that he's been dancing with the dummy the whole time, and then the camera pans back to Sarah's picture, which suggests that she's been dead the whole time. The research for modelling the characters, I've taken the inspiration from sculpture, and Michelangelo and Bernini were my main inspiration, along with Venice figurines. Venice figurines were really good to analyze and see that you can exaggerate a human body but still be able to tell it's a human person, which has been really good to keep with my stylized designs for my characters. I've also been taking inspiration from my life drawings and also modelling for games, which has been really interesting, looking at the poly count and how the characters get built for the use in games. I started off with modelling the characters because they needed to go out for rigging as soon as possible, so there's still time to make some changes if needed. The characters are fairly simple. Everything was modelled to be smoothed. The characters actually differ a bit from the original designs because I didn't like how they looked in 3D, so I decided to change a bit of the proportions while I was working on them, so they would look better in the 3D world. The second character I built was Sarah. I used the exact same modelling technique I used for Alden to model her. The only problem I had with her was the hair. I designed it. When I designed it, it looked really well in 2D, but once I started modelling the hair in 3D, it didn't look so well. So I decided to remodel it inside of Maya and just make it look better. And it's just little adjustments like that that help the characters look good in the end. The research for modelling the environments has been inspired by the Victorian era, basically their furniture and the sophisticated look it brings into the room. I really like that, so I decided to put that in my film as well, and also been inspired by the organic shapes of the work from the artist Alphonse Mucha. And I've also been looking at game design environments, which then took me to looking into level design and learning a lot about creating environments for games, which has been really good. The environment modelling had 3 basic stages. First, I've modelled all the props that needed the most detail. It's the objects that would have been close to the camera at some point of the film, so they needed to have a good amount of detail on them to look good and convincing when the camera's close up. Second would be the props that are always far away in the background, which really didn't need any detail at all because most likely they'd be blurred, so you wouldn't be able to tell. So less time was needed to make these. The last stage of modelling for the environment would be the actual room interior. Basically the place where all the objects would go, creating the ceilings, walls, floors, adding some interesting detail like the banister on the upper floor, and making the shape of the actual room a bit more exciting, as the making is just a rectangle. I've added some columns, big windows, and created the arched ceiling, so that's been really fun to do, and I really enjoyed creating the props and the environment for the film. Research and inspiration for the texturing process came from artists mostly, like Wilhelm Hammershøi, with his brilliant choice of color, which helps with creating the atmosphere and emotions. And I also loved the way he created his environments. It was really interesting. Anders Zorn and his limited palette, it helped me to realize that I can use a limited palette as well and get the most out of my textures. Also, I've been inspired by John Singer Sargent. He's also been using a limited palette and putting a lot of detail into his work, which has been really inspiring. And I've also been looking into games art and how they created their environments and their choice of colours and schemes they used. And also I've been analysing all sorts of textures around me to help me capture the detail and just basically the look of and feel of different textures. The texturing process was a very important part of creating this film, because this is what will define the look of the whole piece. I decided to create quite detailed textures on the models. Without using embossed maps, I wanted to fully paint all the textures to create the illusion that would appear on the models. I have created my own palette of colours to make sure I get the style and look I wanted, and to make sure that all the separately textured objects will go well together in the end. Texture was actually a really fun stage, unwrapping all the 3D objects and then painting them in Photoshop to apply the finished texture on the objects inside of Maya. Quite a lot of testing and going back and forth between Maya and Photoshop went during this process to make sure that all the textures look right, and when rendered the colours come out exactly as I wanted them, and also to make sure that all the detail is there and nothing gets lost while the objects get rendered. The character Regan was fully created by my friend Joanna. She did regs for both of the characters. Since the characters didn't really need that much movement going on during the film anyway, the regs only needed to be basic. Joanna did a really good job with the regs. She started up with Alden, then she's moved on to Sarah, and the improvement with the second reg was quite clear with its complexity. Both of the regs were really good and they were fun to animate with, so thanks to Joe for the great job. The inspiration for lighting came from various artists, such as George de la Tour. And his paintings, he uses very dramatic effects of lighting, which help him to bring the focus of a certain bit of the painting and helps to tell the story. This shows how powerful lighting really is. Another artist I really like is Joseph Wright of Derby. He does these amazing paintings with a fantastic focus on the lighting, which has been really inspiring. I've also been analysing the lighting on an everyday basis by observing its behaviour and analysing different light effects. The lighting was very important because this is what helped me to bring the mood to the film. I had to make sure that it all works well with the textures I've created, and that helps to bring the whole piece to life. Lighting was very important because it would help to define the style of the film. Having to find the fine line between making the lighting look artificial and too realistic. I've been learning various lighting methods inside of Maya, and I've been going through all of them and testing them to see which method would work best for this film. I've been using just the normal lights inside of Maya. I've tried some global illumination in Final Gather, but then I realised it's not the right way to go for an animated film. And then I found a really good technique that I've used, and I realised using this technique it was really easy for me to help and bring the mood of the film for the two different worlds I was creating. I could have just created the dramatic light changes in After Effects once the film was rendered, but I really wanted to learn and create the lighting inside of Maya and have the full control in there. There were no big or exaggerated movements. The film was of a soft and slow pace, and the movements of the characters really had to reflect that. Animation involved a lot of working with props and the two characters together, which is always a bit more challenging than just animating a simple character on its own. Making sure the timing was right and nothing was going on too fast. And the key was to keeping the whole piece work well as a whole. Observing people on everyday basis and doing some observational drawings myself has been really helpful. Also recreating the movements myself has really helped me to see how a certain pose should look. There's actually been some problems with animating the ink cloth, which comes under the dynamics. Attaching the cloth to Sarah was quite difficult, and the cloth just wouldn't stay in place, like it wouldn't attach to the body, it would just kind of halfway through just go through her. But I've been testing it quite a lot to make sure that the cloth works well, and then in the end result the cloth just works spot on, really brilliant. So that really has helped me save the time from having to rig the dress, which has been really good. For rendering, I've created a few custom layers and used some of the passes with them. I used a master layer, and with that I used the beauty, diffuse, depth and reflection passes, an ambient occlusion layer, an ID layer and a matte layer. I've also created a glow layer and I've rendered that using Maya software renderer, and everything else has been rendered with Mental Ray. Oh yeah, when I've rendered my scenes and put them into decompositing, I've realised I don't really like the candle flame light behaviour, so I decided to go back into Maya and re-render a couple of the scenes that had the candlelight in them, and just re-render the candlelight on a separate layer, and then the scene without the candlelight. So then once I put it into After Effects, I would have a full control of the candlelight. The compositing process was actually very fun. I've never done this before, but compositing really helped me to put the whole piece together. It helped to create the focus on certain bits of the film, which has helped to tell the story more clearly without having the viewers wandering around the screen. And here's just a few of the before and afters, before the compositing and then after. It shows you how it really helps to pull the whole picture together. And here's some of the final shots of the scenes from the film. So I hope that was informative, guys. I'm Carla Zero and thanks for watching. Bye.